We have a special guest that has entered into the podcast today. We have Miss Monteze Morales running for County Commissioner of Kalamazoo, Michigan for District 2. How are you doing today?
I am well. Thank you all for having me. I feel honored to be amongst colleagues and former students. So, this is a blessing. Thank you.
That's great. That's great.
We are super excited to have you on this week. So, Monteze, we just want to know, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for county commissioner?
Absolutely. So, I'm Monteze Morales. I am originally from Bridgeport, Connecticut. I was a homegrown KPS student in Kalamazoo. So I graduated from Kalamazoo Central, went to a HBCU, found out how black I needed to become. It was straight. Do you know this and that? And it was like no. So I was educated when I left there. Came back to a PWI, which was between Kalamazoo Valley and Western Michigan University. Graduated from both. It's a great day to be a Bronco. My degree is in secondary ed, English, history, African studies, and my master's is sociocultural studies. And I'm all but thesis in that program. So I'm a mom, a sister. I've been a long time advocate for students, for people of color. I am an Afro Latina. So I represent Black and Brown people, but when it comes to public education, I represent everybody. So now my son, as some of you know, is now a Bronco entering his second year in the nursing program.
Yay.
One of the reasons why I chose to run is because we kind of overlook local politics. And as I reached my 20th year in education, I was noticing how funding was being cut to our most disproportionate areas when it came to people losing financial aid, as many of us may have been susceptible to. And there was funding out there, and they started cutting funding because nobody was at the table to represent. So I want to be the voice of my district. There has been some misrepresentation for District 2, who are high proportionate of African Americans and Latinos as well. So people have trusted me with their children in elementary education, secondary, and post-secondary, as you know. So I am looking for them to vote for me so they can trust me with their district and their county as well.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. So one thing we want to get into is, some things that in our community that don't seem important that most people think, that don't affect us, but it really actually does. One of the things we had is, why is the census important? Isn't that a way for the government to, track minorities to keep us down? Something that was talked about.
So the government tracking us already. He already know.
Right.
I mean, we on these phones, we on these Zooms. You get these emergency alerts at 3 a.m.
Right.
You checking your app, and it's like updated COVID-19 health data in there, so they can already reach us. So it's and I grew up too, not thinking that my vote counted, or just seeing how votes were misplaced in other states. And, even how our president, although Hillary got the popular vote, is still the president. Right. So I'm here to change that narrative. I truly believe that if we vote, we can make changes, and changes at the local level are very important. Sometimes we look like we voted and, the president isn't doing anything. That's because he got the whole United States to think about. But if we focus on our respective areas, we can make change. So historically, when we think about the census, people of color have been counted out for years and years and years. And so other people have been double counted. In the past, it's been up to about 3% that has been omitted. So when we think about the census, we think about funding. When you think about your funding, think about how maybe some of the school districts you went to didn't have enough money for books. Let's think about Detroit. Let's think about Flint. In Kalamazoo County, we really don't have those issues, although people of color are being educated in our school systems. So when we think about filling out that census, it's important because we need those dollars. If we don't fill out the census, then they don't think that we need money. in our respective areas. And the redlining has been there since the beginning of time. So for me, it's been an issue on purpose, but now we can change that issue. So I encourage people to fill out their census. You could Google it and fill out your census, and they'll give you a census number, and so that you can be counted. We talk about we're not counted, but then, we go rally, we go march, and then we don't have a plan of action and, make a change so that we could see that difference. So I'm pushing everyone to make that change this year, to fill out your census so we can be counted, so that you can have dollars in your respective community so that you can start thriving.
Definitely agree with that.
Seems like we have some paperwork to fill out now.
You got some paperwork to fill out, because as of this year, that's about $2 billion that cost. So we think about how schools are funded based off property taxes. Now think of your low socioeconomic areas. Think of the state funding and the budget cuts. I mean, we just learned today that one of our dear, colleagues from Western Michigan University has been released. And a lot of that is because of budget cuts.
Right.
So when you think about the state funding, the state gives 10% of funding, but that's for the whole state of Michigan. And that funding is supposed to go to, people who are eligible for free and reduced and lunches, and that live in low socioeconomic areas. But then you say they give 10 million or, 10 billion, that's like $2 a student. So how are we supposed to educate students based off that? You know what I mean?
Right.
And people don't look into that. So locally, you can vote, on millages and, cut the redlining so that the most porous areas aren't being highly taxed, and the areas who can afford to be taxed are, getting passed by. But they're the ones you see new stadiums being built in the high schools. They all have computers. I mean, how many non people of color do you know have had trouble not securing Wi-Fi? Or when you think of our white community, do they need free internet access? Just think about this COVID-19 that just went on. Free internet access had to go to so many families so that they could just receive their education.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot. It's definitely a lot.
It's a lot, and we can make
that's
that
a lot. To think that all of that is formed off of just us for generations not filling out this paperwork to let us know that we're here and we need to be counted. We need our voices to be heard. Not participating in local elections to make sure we have people that look like us sitting there making decisions that would benefit us.
Absolutely.
So when we see someone on the ballot that represents us, we need to make sure we're supporting.
Absolutely. So another way that you can see who's on the ballot in your area, typically every community has the League of Women Voters. If you log on to their website, you could just Google it and you type your address in, and it'll show you who's running in your area. And then if they filled out the campaign form just to know a little bit about them, you can see everything that's going on. So for me, if you went in and you put the League of Women Voters, and my address is public anyway, you put 1231 Banbury, then all of my information and the current incumbents information will come up, and you can select like, yeah, we want to vote for her. But it's all about doing research, and taking your kids out to the voting polls, making sure that they understand the importance of it, and us stepping up, and knowing that, say I run and I don't get selected, if, we go straight ticket, what if that person isn't a good person? We got to think about who we're putting in office. That's the only way that me and some of my other colleagues will not get into office.
Definitely.
Fair enough. Now tell me, if you are elected, and I'm believing when you are elected, how will your position have the power to bring forth change, specifically as a county commissioner?
So specifically as a county commissioner, we have Commissioner Stephanie Moore right now, and she put a proclamation out to declare that, racism was a public health crisis, and she presented it in front of her colleagues. And what we did as a community, we flooded their emails. They had over 5,000 emails probably to say that this is a public health crisis, and then the resolution got adopted. So it was, 9-2, 2 Republicans opposed, and that's okay. But on that level, now we can get with the city officials and say, you know what, we're starting to hold the police accountable for what it is they do, because that money comes out of the city budget. So when people are looking at, I'm contacting other people because I don't like our police department, they're not treating us well, and they don't know what to do, you contact your city officials, you contact your city manager, that's who you contact, your mayor. That's where the police budget comes in at. And so when you're voting on different things, 47 probably to 50% of the city's budget goes to your police department. Now, how are you supposed to compensate for the rest of the city if that much money is going into that and they're not treating us well?
Right.
So for me, being able to be at the table and say, no, I don't believe that we should cut this funding, and this is why. So for example, we had a budget. I had a budget of about $25,000 at Kalamazoo Valley through a community action agency. And so I'm meeting with one of the commissioners as I'm interviewing for an appointment. And he's saying, oh, I had to cut this money because of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, do you know that you took $25,000 of my budget? And now I can't help students who have been suspended from both the Kalamazoo Promise and financial aid. So I had it set up that, and if anybody knows, when you're suspended from financial aid, it's hard to cough up that money for even 2 classes.
Yes, it is.
Anywhere. And so I said that money was in place so that I can get them food if they face food insecurity, housing insecurities, and it paid for up to 7 credits, a bus pass, and their book supplies. Now,
Wow.
If we're moving towards education, and we want students in the trades, if you cut something like that, how are you for education?
Right.
If you continue to cut our budget that supports family services in our community, how can you want change? If you're not investing in diversity and inclusivity resources and homelessness resources, how do you want change? More importantly, if you're cutting from our education budget, how can you really say you want prison reform if we know that by the 3rd grade, we already know who's going to prison?
Right.
So these are some things that to think about. And so because I'm from Kalamazoo County and I know the school districts and I know families, and I represent through my current job as the program manager for Kalamazoo Promise Services, I know all the constituents that need help from all of the districts that attend Kalamazoo Valley and Kalamazoo County students as well. So I can make a change at that table by voting against things like that for people who aren't so much in the community or who don't check on the community, who don't feel like people deserve to have an education.
I feel like I need to snap because you're just giving so many facts. That's the only appropriate reaction I feel like I have.
I take snaps any day. That means I'm doing all right.
You can't hear it, but that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Snap. I appreciate that. And I just think that I know that attended, WMU in reference to some of the research work that we've done, and our counterparts may have gotten an A and we got a C off of the same thing. So we understand those inequities. We understand being in a place where nobody looks like you and trying to share your struggle. And they're like, there's nothing I can do for you. So me being on that county board, I mean, when you look at me, sometimes you don't know what I am, but I represent everybody. And so I understand what it feels like to be on government services, i.e. food stamps, Section 8. I understand how it feels to make $2 more and be cut off. And I understand how it feels to be pinched because I'm in this, what they call quote unquote middle class, if you will. And so more taxes are being taken out. How am I supposed to pay for my son to go to college if y'all are steady taxing me harder than the people who have the money? I.e. when we look at Amazon and all these rich companies that are not being taxed and we're being penalized for it.
Right. Definitely understand that. Now, what's one thing that Black people or just people of color should be aware of that you wish you were aware of 10 years ago?
Excuse me. I just wish I was aware of running for a spot like county commission doesn't take as much as we think. as far as running on the local level. So when we think of school board and county commission, there's some requirements that you're a resident of that area. And so had I known that years ago, I think, we on campus, when we live in those apartments, think of how many people live in there, about 2,000.
Right.
Those were votes we could have got to run for this seat to make change. So it doesn't take a lot for you to run. It just takes for people to like you. And if you can get people to register to vote, which is very important, if you can get people to fill out their census, which is very important, and tune into a county commission meeting or a city commission meeting every now and then, just so you know what's on the agenda, and then you can rally up some people to make a change. So, for example, some of the immigrants that lived in our area, or people that were considered DACA, couldn't have an ID to just even cash their checks, to just even maybe go and buy a drink in a store. And so they rallied up and they got some things changed. They went down to the county commission building, and now they have county IDs so that they can function. So when we talk about the things that we need, if we rally together and really push for it, it can happen. So I just wish that people were in my ear years ago saying, hey, you can do this and you can make change, outside of just marching or, putting some post up and then it dies down. You being in a political chair, it's not going to die down. You always got stuff on your agenda and you can fight for your people.
Definitely. Now, do anyone here have any questions that you want to ask?
I do.
Okay.
I know I'm not in Michigan, but you mentioned, like, I wanted to go back to the census, because you mentioned people filling out the census, and I just wanted to know, I know in the communities that I've taught in, there's been hesitancy around the census because of documentation. And so, like, what does that mean for undocumented folks, and how can they participate in Michigan?
And I mean, as far as that go, it is tricky, and I don't want to lead anybody in the wrong way. So as long as you're a legal resident, I would say go ahead and fill it out. But if you're afraid, as someone that's undocumented and still maybe working, I wouldn't personally put that attention towards myself. But if you're working and you have the proper identification, I would encourage you to do what you can for your community. I wouldn't request that anybody be in harm's danger. So when we think of that, say someone did that, you could, and say ICE came to that department, and pick them up, you can tell your county sheriff, like, I don't want you housing, people that the federal government have picked up via ICE, housing them in our county jails that we pay taxes on. So there's different ways to get over that.
What would be like the rally votes, like creating this like form? Like, is it like signature, like a certain amount of signatures that you would have to get in order to even get the attention of the county commissioners? Like, what would that protest type look like when trying to get things like that passed?
So it doesn't even have to be a protest. There's public comment at every county commission meeting, and you can go and stand and say, hey, here's a resolution that I want. You list your problems. You say, hey, here's some people that follow behind me. Here's their signatures, emails. They live in this specific district, and they want change. So, maybe they'll listen. And then if you don't get what you want, you go back and you do it again. So there are some people, I've been to several county commission meetings, and there's some water issues that we're facing in Kalamazoo County. And so one of them is flooding. So a district came out, and now they're up to see a judge in FEMA to get the funding that they need. But it was because they pressed it, they did their homework, and they presented it to the county commission several times. And then that proposal went, and the county commission voted on it. So as long as you're bringing your people in and you make relationships with county commissioners, which is going to be important, and that's just an email. Hey, my name is such and such. I have some questions. Can we sit down and meet? Hey, my name is such and such. Can you just reply via email, and it's their job to reply to you as their constituent.
So what you're saying is actually contacting the people in power does more than making a Facebook post to complain about it.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm hearing.
Looking at Facebook posts.
But you would think by the way people get on talking, Facebook Live, all these posts, 500 likes, 1,000 shares, all this stuff, you would think that that's how people expect change to happen. But we actually have people in these positions who can make things happen. We just have to actually bring it to the right place.
So when we think of George Floyd, yeah, it went viral, but there were people contacting that mayor, contacting the city manager, contacting the chief of police. Yeah, it amplified, through Facebook. Yes, that's how, initially it was shown to us, but stuff can be shown. But if we don't go out there and protest and put our foot on their necks for change, then nothing is going to happen. So, just how many videos a day do you see with 1,000 likes or 18,000 likes, that has been pushed under the rug? So if you don't send those emails and your friends don't send those emails out to people, it can fall on deaf ears. So, now that everything is via Zoom, you can actually Zoom into your county commission meetings, and they have meeting IDs, and you can go into public comment and voice your opinion. So, for your respective areas, I would suggest that you Google that, whatever your county is. If it's Jackson County Commission, Battle Creek County Commission, Detroit County Commission, I would see who's on that board and do your research on them and see what they vote for, see what their morals are, and if you align with it. And if you're in that area, say you're in a District 2, and you don't think that person aligns with what you believe in, then you go find somebody, or you yourself run for that position and get people to support you.
Definitely. And one thing I just have to add is that non-people of color, I don't want to say any specific colors, but non-people of color are not afraid of using their voice to make change. So we can't either. We can't allow us to just be silent. It's not going to create any forward motion. And that's exactly what we need to happen.
Oh, absolutely. Non-people of color, when people are sick and tired, they're always using their voices. And sometimes, they know the right people. So right now I'm encouraging y'all to know the right people, to ask some questions. You can start tonight, Google your county commissioners and ask them what's on their agenda for August 4th. You can go to that League of Women Voters to see who's actually on the ballot. Ballots are out. You can do absentee ballots. Applications are out. I'm personally going to the polls. I'm not there yet with the absentee and filling out my application to do it by mail, but I am for registering folks to vote and coming to them to help them fill it out, and to help them know how to mail things in. And my information is going to be in English and Spanish as well. So those are things that you all could work on. You have a platform and an audience that's listening to you. So in these upcoming months, the primaries are going to be important. So just how we saw Kamala get knocked out and Elizabeth Warren get knocked out, those were all through primaries and raising money. So it's important that you donate to folks' campaigns. If you can't donate, that you volunteer. Volunteer could be just posting their stuff, sending them an email, doing a phone bank. It doesn't always have, and just making sure that if you know somebody in Kalamazoo that doesn't know, people that are running, that you reach out to those respective neighborhoods and say, hey, I need you to go knock on your neighbor's door and let them know what to do. So August 4 is going to be very, very important for your local levels. As far as like county commission, you have some state reps that are coming up. You need to be familiar with those folks, because that's where like your education.
You cut out again.
02, you have Congress and Senate.
Hold on. You said state representatives are coming up, and then you cut out again.
State representatives. I think they start coming around in July. So they'll be coming, trying to get endorsements, and they'll start coming up on those primary ballots as well. When you think of school board, they'll just be on that November ballot. So this November 2020 ballot is going to be very, very important. It's presidential election, and then there are going to be local elections, state elections, and county elections all on that ballot. So I encourage you all to get registered to vote. complete your census. If your IDs are expired, get them updated, and just be ready to come out strong and vote this year.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Monteze, for joining the Copacetic Hour. We appreciate you. If you're listening and you feel like you want to donate to Monteze's campaign, you can via Cash App at $ Monteze Morales 2020. That's MONTEZE Morales 2020. You can donate via ActBlue at actblue.com/donate/Monteze Morales, or via check written out to Friends of Monteze Morales, mailed to 1231 Banbury Road in Kalamazoo, Michigan. There's ways to volunteer. There's ways to follow Monteze on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Monteze Morales. Again, she's running for Kalamazoo County Commission, District 2. Be sure to get out and vote August 4th.
August 4th. Make sure you go out and vote.
Thank y'all so much. I appreciate your time. Good luck. It's an amazing platform. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm rooting for y'all. Make sure y'all fill out your census vote. Thank you for having me.